Mr. Tony Trischka, thanks for joining me at Blues and Beyond with Jim Carty.
My pleasure, Jim. Great to be here with you.
Well, bluegrass is something that I absolutely love, and it's not my forte. I'm from a blues and jazz background mostly, but I have dabbled enough to speak semi-intelligently, so I'll do my best to keep up. How's that sound?
It sounds good, and there's blues and jazz in bluegrass, so it's all of a piece.
Absolutely. I was just listening to the Billy Strings tune there, which was what was it, Brown Ferry Blues, which actually
Mhm.
reminded me of Deep Ellum Blues to a little degree.
Okay, yeah.
You want to tell me about working with Billy? 'Cause that's fairly recent.
Well, actually, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
The album came out last June, a year ago,
yeah.
but I recorded another tune with him at the time, which will be released as a single coming up, I think, in January. Anyway, he's the sweetest guy in the world. He's amazing as a singer and as a guitar player, and he
Mhm.
deserves every single thing that he's got going on. In fact, I'm going to go see him tomorrow night. He's going to be in Newark,
Wonderful.
and he's not playing in a club. He's playing in a I don't know 10,000 seat arena kind of place.
Right,
That's what he's doing these days,
right,
and
right. It's
he's
got to
got
be bigger than the Beacon or something. Yeah, you said
yeah,
you
it's
were.
definitely bigger than the Beacon.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean it's great what he's doing for bluegrass, turning all these mostly younger people
right.
on onto bluegrass because he's got the light show and he's I guess he does some I know he does some extended jams, but then he'll play Little Maggie, this traditional bluegrass tune, two and a half
Hmm.
minute tune, and the place is going nuts for it. And it's like, wait, this is bluegrass. Don't you get it? You're not supposed to be it's not supposed to be as cool as it is as cool as anyone could ever imagine, but for the younger generation to get that is really an amazing thing that Billy's doing. And he was great in the studio and just totally professional and fun and everything you would hope. So he's a really sweet guy.
Good, good.
Yeah.
The one thing while I was researching this, I looked up some video of you and dog David Grissman, and
Hmm.
I had actually been in the studio with Grissman and my friend Jerry Bodwin. He made two records with Jerry, and I adored Grissman. What a sweetheart! Uh,
Hmm.
and Looked like you guys were having fun. And in the conversation, you mentioned that you saw Jimmy Martin in Baldwinsville, New York. I happen to have lived in Baldwinsville, New York at one point.
No, you didn't.
I lived in Radisson, which I probably was not there when you lived there, unless you've been back. But there's a Budweiser brewery in Baldwinsville now. And then there's like a planned community near that, and I lived in there. I lived there in high school, but and then I went to Christian Brothers Academy, which
Oh,
really was
CBS.
there. Yeah, I went to CBA
I
right
went
up
to
front.
Nottingham. So
Yep, yep. So I
yeah,
had the brothers.
when I was a kid, I lost a shoe like when I was 5 years old or something. There was like a little canal or something in Baldwinsville.
There is, correct, right in the middle of
I
town.
stuck my foot in there and pulled it out. And when I pulled my foot back out of this fence, preventing you from falling into the canal, my shoe
Hmm.
fell in there, and that was in Baldwinsville. And then seeing Jimmy Martin.
So
So
were you born and raised in Syracuse proper or in the metro area?
in Syracuse proper, I'm
Yeah.
Syracuse. So yeah, I grew up there. I left there in 1973, but I was there till then.
So to find your way to all this great music, was that primarily mom and dad in the home while in Syracuse? Um, you don't think of Syracuse as a hotbed of roots music, being the Rust Belt city that it is, but could be.
Yeah, well, my parents had wide tastes. They had records of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, My Fair Lady, so Broadway shows, King and I,
Hmm.
other classical music, and they were lefties, and they had Pete Seeger and the Weavers and the Almanac Singers. So I grew up with a wide variety of things. But I heard Pete Seeger play the banjo, when I was a kid, but I didn't get it. It didn't turn me on to the banjo. But I got into folk guitar because I grew up in the early '60s when folk
Sure.
music was big. There was this folk boom with all the commercial groups like the Kingston Trio, who were really big,
Hmm.
and the Brothers Four and the Limelighters and groups like that, New Christy Minstrels. But my parents let me go to the 1963 Newport Folk Festival um, with my banjo teacher, and I got to see Mississippi John Hurt. And
Wow.
the year after that, Skip James, Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Bill Monroe, Doc Boggs. I mean, people who had all recently been rediscovered who had recorded in the 20s and 30s. So it made a huge impression on me, needless to say.
Yeah, I had seen Sweet Judy Blue Eyes there backstage at Newport, and my dad looked at her, wow, she's gorgeous. I'm like, that big guy's her husband and her manager. Stay away. And but I mentioned to her that I had seen Dick Waterman recently,
Uh-huh.
and she got very excited and started talking about those days with Skip James and Mississippi John Hurt and all those blues cats and
Son
uh,
House, who was
Son
in
House.
Rochester.
I mean,
So
the memories just flooded back for her,
yeah.
and it was so wonderful to see her so excited. What was that like back in those days for you at Newport?
Oh, it was amazing. It was totally amazing. You just go in there and there they all are, all these people, because I was playing, I'd been sort of doing a folk thing and I'm actually writing protest songs because I was really into Dylan
Yeah.
when I was like 12, 13 years old. And then I got into Doc Watson because he sort of had his coming out party, as it were, as the same with Dylan. 1963 Newport is where everyone realized, okay, this is the guy. And the same
Right.
thing with Doc Watson because he'd been playing with the Watson family
Yeah.
and some other folks, but that's when he first started playing solo. And we got to hear Deep River Blues and Doc's guitar and just a
Yeah.
whole bunch of things like that. And I started playing some of his stuff on the guitar, like Black Mountain Rag and some and Deep River Blues. And then I saw the Kingston Trio, or not saw them, but the very first album I owned was the Kingston Trio at large. And there's a song on there called MTA, and their banjo player Dave Guard took a banjo solo on where in the middle of it he says, kind of hurts my fingers. And it was kind of a pseudo Scruggs solo.
Yeah.
And I heard there were 16 notes in there that made me play the banjo. I said, okay, forget the guitar. I need a banjo.
Well,
And that
my people from Boston, I'm originally from Boston, so every Bostonian knows the Kingston Trio and Charlie on the MTA.
right,
You just sit at the Irish Bar and they play it once on the hour almost.
right. And the tickets were called Charlie's or something like that.
Yep, yep, yep. But I'm interested in your current projects and what you plan to be bringing to the stage at the Cade on December 2nd, I believe.
Yes, it's December 2nd, and I've got a Christmas show that I've been doing for the last 10 years with a gentleman named Tim Erickson,
Hmm.
uh, who is an amazing shape note singer and everything, not just that.
Hmm.
And I believe he's in Amherst these days. Just a great guy. And I put out a Christmas album uh, many years ago, and I wanted a shape note group on there,
Hmm.
and was led to him because I knew nothing
Now
about.
explain a shape note group to me.
Okay, yes, it's as if everybody knows what that is, which they don't. Obviously, it's more niche than bluegrass
Yes.
by far. It's and I am not an authority to speak on this, but I can give you a general idea. It's not completely, but a lot of religious music written out in four parts. And instead of having actual notes, there are shapes on, and then there's a staff as you would have in music notation.
Hmm.
So you can read it either as notation, or if you don't, that's it's called solfege, where it's the relationship between do, re, mi, fa, sol, that sort of a thing.
Hmm.
They'll have a triangle or a circle or a square on
Okay.
on a space or on a line, and people can just look at that even if they don't read music and they know the relationships. Uh,
Interesting.
Very stark sounding music and began in the Northeast, but there's an Alabama tradition for it also. And it really has this stark quality to it. Usually, and they have sings where they'll have a bunch of people together and divide into four parts. And it's really powerful. But when I first heard Tim sing, he had a group called Northampton Harmony. It was just four people, and I loved
Hmm.
the starkness of it. It reminded me of Bill Monroe's more edgier, um, the high lonesome sound that he has.
Yeah. I love almost anything that comes out of the church. I mean, just from sacred steel to gospel
Oh,
to
Sacred Steel, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, uh, Robert Randolph and I can talk all day about the Campbell brothers and Aubrey Gent,
Yep.
and we just go down the rabbit hole with sacred steel and all that stuff from our Hooli is just dynamite.
Yeah, I did one gig with it wasn't even a gig with Robert Randolph. It was some just storefront with no name on it in Lower Manhattan,
Hmm.
and I just got out my banjo and we just started playing. It was a whole group and no audience. It was sort of rehearsing for a show that night,
Yeah.
and he's amazing. So anyway,
Yeah, he is. It's the real deal.
yeah.
So,
Well, I can continue with what I'll bring to the cake.
please, please, yes.
Yeah, there's a woman named Hannah Reed who's Scottish who lives in Alaska now, and she's a wonderful, wonderful singer and songwriter, and guitar player and fiddler. She's a quadruple threat or something like that.
Hmm.
And a guy named Jared Engel on bass,
Hmm.
who I play with in my bluegrass group all the time. He's in Brooklyn, and my son Sean Trischka, and he plays drums, and he's a great drummer, and he sings as well. And on this tour, we have a woman named Eleanor Buckland, who's going to be joining us all also on some numbers, and she's a singer songwriter from Maine originally and living in North Carolina these days. And she plays fiddle and sings and plays some guitar too. So it's going to be uh, mostly a 5 piece, but sometimes a 6 piece band. And we
Sounds
don't
great.
do all the standard, we do some of the standard Christmas tunes, but we do a lot of things that are outside the norm of that. Because so many people have heard so many of the standard tunes, and people don't need to hear that from us. We have another thing, including we do some shape note music with
Hmm.
Tim. We'll recreate some of that and a couple of original tunes and just some more obscure things. And I just did a thing. You're familiar with Happy Traum, I presume,
No,
or
I'm
maybe.
not actually. No.
Okay, Happy Traum. He had something called homespun tapes that he did for many years,
Okay.
a instructional thing for folk, blues, bluegrass, all sorts of things. And he passed recently, and there was a kind of a commemoration concert or a celebration of his life concert in Woodstock, New York. And I went up to be a part of that because I was friendly with Happy. And John Sebastian from Love and Spoonful, the
Yeah, I
bass.
know John. Sure.
Yeah, John was. I showed up for the sound check. He was the only one there on time, along with me. And we
Hmm.
were talking, and he they played a tune. Somehow it came up that he had this crabby Christmas tune that he'd written. Gonna have a crabby Christmas. And I said, I need to do this for my show. Can I use it? And he said, sure. So he played it for me, and it's great. And
Hmm.
find it on Apple Music or Spotify. So it'll be the only song that I sing all night long. Everything else is joyous and happy, but you got to have one
Absolutely.
alternative
A
song.
little novelty tune thrown in there or something.
Exactly. So,
Something other than I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus, that is.
yes, exactly. Yeah, there are others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dear, see, dear mommy, dear daddy, don't get drunk this Christmas is another one, which we're not going to do.
Good, good.
Which was written by the folks that did Country Roads by John Denver. So
Oh,
anyway, I digress.
yes. So, having been in Boston for so many years of my life, I got to know Marion Layton from Rounder Records. I assume you have encountered her with your association with Rounder and doing some producing there. Looked like
Oh,
you did a marvelous project there at Rounder. Do you want to talk about that and the folks you pulled together?
yeah. Well, I first got to know Mary in 1971,
Yeah,
and it was she and Bill Nowlin and Ken Irwin started Rounder Records back
right.
in '70, and I was one of the first acts. I was with a group called Country Cooking back then, and all my solo records, with the exception of one, were with Rounder. And then they got out of the business, Marion and Ken and Bill, and sold it to Concord, I think, and then we sold
Hmm.
Universal, blah blah blah. But then maybe 3 years ago, they decided to get back into the business and started Down the Road Records.
Oh, I
And
wasn't even aware of that. I'm out of town. I'm in Connecticut now, of course. So
yeah, and
that's
so
fantastic.
it's a new label, and I believe I was the first person they approached to do an album. And I'd gotten a hold of these recordings of Earl Scruggs and John Hartford. John Hartford having written "Gentle on My Mind,"
Hmm.
uh, and it's over. I got a thumb drive of over 200 songs with John and Earl just jamming at Earl's and John's house at various times from the mid
Hmm.
'80s, mid '90s. Often just the two of them. Other times with other folks added in, and they're doing songs that we've never heard them do before. For instance, Here Comes the Bride. They do that.
Hmm.
What? And then more standard tunes that we have known them to play, but with Earl Scruggs doing these crazy, really unusual things that he'd never done anywhere else. And so I got really excited since I'm a banjo player and Earl Scruggs is my deity, uh, and many people's deities.
Yeah.
And and so I decided I'm going to start transcribing what he's doing, slowed the recordings down to half speed, and decided, and there was all this amazing stuff there, and I decided these jams will probably never get out there to the public, so I should record an album where every song I play is a every solo that I take on these songs would be note for note what Earl played in these
Mm.
sessions from these transcriptions that I'd done. And so that's what I did. And it's called Earl Jam. It's an album called Earl Jam, which came out last June, a year and a half ago, or almost a year and a half ago now. And I had Billy Strings on there, and Vince Gill, and Sierra Farrell, and Del McCurry, and Bela Fleck, and just a whole bunch of wonderful musicians.
That is quite the lineup.
Yeah. And it was nominated for a Grammy,
Yeah.
and it lost. But the Beatles were also nominated for 2 Grammys and lost in one of their categories. So I always, it makes me feel a little bit better. I'm not alone. Pretty good
Yeah.
band.
I remember interviewing Reverend Al Green, and he lamented he always lost at the Grammys until he put out a gospel record.
Uh-huh.
He's like, it just proves that I needed to be working in the Lord's vineyard, Jim. Like, yes, Reverend.
Well, maybe I'll put out a gospel album.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, do it.
Good idea. There's
Yeah.
certainly a million great gospel tunes. So anyway, that's what that project is. And continuing in that vein, I have 2 new singles. One came out about 3 weeks, maybe a month ago now, and another one just came out yesterday. Along the same lines, 2 other tunes from these jams. First
Hmm.
one that came out a month ago was with a group called Sister Sadie,
Oh,
and
great. Yeah.
full all-female band from Nashville. And it's a song called Maple on the Hill
Hmm.
that was done by the Carter family. And it's again going with these Earl Jam, it's continuing this Earl Jam story. And then yesterday, there's a group called the Steel Drivers.
Yep.
Out of,
Fantastic.
yeah, fantastic folks. And I joined with them to do a song called Lost John, which is another wonderful song from these jam sessions. So those are the current releases in the Earl Jam saga, as it were.
Now, how hard is it to transcribe something that is so organic and spontaneous and then try to replicate it in studio?
Uh,
Especially when it's not your original, it's not something that came out of you originally.
right. Well, I always say, I mean, transcribing the tunes, that process was tricky because many times John Hartford would be strumming the fiddle instead of bowing it, and he'd be
Mhm.
too. Basically, John Hartford recorded all these jam sessions on a cheap cassette machine, and if the cassette machine was closer to John than Earl, it would be, wait, what's Earl playing? I can tell it's a great solo. I'll get through halfway through it, and then he starts strumming, and then I can't hear it, and then I can't use it. So there were those moments, but a lot of it I was able to hear, and I know Earl's music so well that I could, even if I couldn't hear it, I could intuit pretty closely what he was
Yeah.
doing. And most of the time, it was really exact. And doing it in the studio, I was the one that had to suffer. Everyone else that I had on these in these jam sessions just played what they played.
Right, right. They just kind of jumped in behind you and
and I had to read off this banjo tablature that was all written out and play it exactly as Earl did it. And in some cases, I had to go back after everyone left and overdub to get it just the way Earl did it. But a lot of the time, I got it. I played it a lot before I went into the studio, so it could feel natural to me.
well, thank God for multi-track recording, right?
Exactly, exactly. It makes
It's
life all.
actually the last place I saw Grisman. I was going to see Les on a Monday night,
Uh-huh.
and David came in with his daughter, and that was such a treat.
You're talking about Les Paul, I presume.
Yeah, of course. Is there any other Les?
No, there's only Lester Flatt, but that's Les.
Right, unless you're young, but yeah,
And
and
Lester Young, a few other folks. And
but yeah,
I saw Stefan Grappelli somewhere in the village at some club years ago, like when I was living in New York at the time, somewhere maybe in the 80s,
yeah.
and sitting fairly close to the stage. And for the encore, Stefan comes out and says, "We have a special guest, Les Paul. Come on up here." And he was sitting at the table behind me and gets on stage and jams with Stefan Grappelli. So that was a
That's so
nice,
amazing.
nice
Yeah.
moment.
I got to be friendly with Bucky Pizzarelli, who was good friends with Les Paul, and he also worked with Grappelli. And I was on the edge of my seat listening to his stories one night about Grappelli,
Oh
which
my
was
God.
so fun, you know.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, someone like you was not phased by it. I mean, there's nobody you haven't worked with. It's tough to interview a guy like you because I could go in so many directions, you
Yeah.
know?
And as I could, you mentioned these various people, and it's like, well, yeah. And I got to know, like, talking about Grisman, who I met in 19. Is that too noisy for you?
No, I'm fine. I don't hear a thing. I'm good, Tony.
Okay, good. Um, I met David, I think it was 1964, and it's 1965. He had a record label called Silver Bell Records. He put out two singles,
Hmm.
one with Frank Wakefield, a wonderful mandolin player who passed recently, and one with David's group, the New York Ramblers.
Hmm.
There was an ad in Sing Out magazine, the folk music magazine, for the single, and I ordered it, and then I met David at a Red Allen concert. Red Allen was a big bluegrass guy
Hmm.
in Philadelphia in like 64 or 65. Uh, and I met David afterwards, and I introduced myself. Oh, Tony Trischka, you're the guy. You're one of the 9 people that ordered that single.
You
He
remember
remembered,
writing out
it was
the
so weird. It stuck in his mind. So
mailing.
I've known David ever since. So
That's so cool. I will tell you that my buddy who recorded with David, he went down and he didn't want to impose on David and sit in and bring a guitar. And David was insistent he sit in on the encore. And David brings some gorgeous instruments with him on the road. He had this
uh,
like 1927 L5. He's like, play this, I'm not taking no for an answer. And it was just such a beautiful instrument to hand over to someone. And, you know, now, do you go on the road with any special instruments that are like valuable antiques or special to you? And do you own anything like in a collection that you're very fond of that you want to talk about?
for many years, I had a pre-war Gibson Mastertone banjo, which is sort of the gold standard for folks. I got it through a guy named Sonny Osborne of the Osborne Brothers, who did Rocky
Oh,
Top.
wow. Yeah.
And I went to one of the Osborne Brothers concerts at one point and talked to Sonny afterwards. And he said, if you're a professional carpenter, you need the best tools. You're a professional banjo player, you need the best banjo. So I'll find you one. And he found one a couple months later from 1932. And I played it out and recorded with it, but I didn't want to take it on the road that much because with something that valuable, you got
Sure.
to take it with you to go to the bathroom. You just don't want to
Right.
leave it in your seat.
Exactly. That's what we
And
told Grisman. We were like, dude, I mean, it's a 1927 L5 and you're just dragging this around the country.
yeah, so I decided to just leave it at home. Uh,
Right.
I have another banjo that was given to me by a woman. I used to have this history of the banjo show that I did, and I did one here in Fairlawn, New Jersey, where I live. And there was a thing in the paper about it, and this woman got in touch the next day and said, my husband was a banjo player, and he left 2 banjos here, and he died recently. And when I died, my children aren't musicians. My son's a drummer.
Mm.
Oh, that's a musician, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a drummer joke, but she actually said that.
Not a real musician, apparently, but
Right. So I want you to have his banjo. So, and one of them was a banjo from 1882
oh
with
my.
ivory pegs, real ivory pegs, and I still play that. It's a wonderful, wonderful banjo. So those are the two that I have. I have my own. I have play a Deering banjo, and I have a signature model called a Golden Clipper, and
Mhm.
that's what I take on the road with me. And it's my main axe, as they say.
Right. But you don't have an illness like Joe Bonamassa with his guitar collection or anything, right?
I have 18 banjos. I do. So I have.
That's not bad.
It's not too bad. It's not a severe illness, but it's an illness nonetheless.
Right, right. I mean,
And
Joe has 18 instruments in a broom closet because the rest of the house is full.
right, yeah. I need another one. I'm sorry. I just need one more.
Right, exactly. They need friends. They
Never
need
sated.
friends. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, great, man. This was fun. Is there anything else that folks need to know about your projects coming up or the tour that you're on?
Yeah, well, I tour with an Earl Jam band. Uh, I do this. I have a lot of touring going on next year, starting in March. Um, and
If you have any major festivals you want to plug that you're already booked on, by all means, so people can plan.
Yeah, I'm going to be at Rocky Grass this summer out in Lyons, Colorado, and I don't know. There are a few others that are in process and probably will come to
Mm,
pass. That's the one that
good, good.
probably come through so far. But this is the main thing I'm doing these days is this Earl Jam thing. I was just down in Maryland and Virginia last weekend, and it's a
Mhm.
band. And the first half of the show is an overview of Earl Scruggs' career, doing the hits like "Salty Dog" and the Beverly Hillbillies theme and things like that, the Ballad of Jack Lamp. And then the second half is tunes from these jam sessions. But in other news, I recently finished. I was commissioned to compose a 5-minute chamber piece, and so I just finished a piece with banjo, violin, viola, cello, oboe, and clarinet. And when you have a blank piece of paper, I'm going to have to write something. What's this going to be?
Yeah.
And in recent times, I've put music to Emily Dickinson poems. So I decided, why don't I write a soprano part for an Emily Dickinson poem?
Oh,
And so I found an Emily Dickinson poem, which I will have a soprano sing. So this will be performed at the Gardner Museum in Boston sometime in the 26, 27 season is how it looks, and maybe performed in a,
the infamous Gardner Museum.
yes, yes. And there's a festival in Moab, Utah, classical festival that I'll probably get to perform it at. So,
Oh, your family up there. I'll have to tell them.
so
Um, so when you did the classical recording, was that tougher for you to pull together the folks to work with because it's not your norm, or did you actually have some people in mind that you felt were uh just what you wanted to go and record with?
it actually, I haven't recorded it yet. I've just
Oh, you
finished
have. Oh, yeah, you
composing it.
planning. Okay, so you're still composing. I got you. Okay.
The composition is done,
Yep.
and I will be recording it for sure.
Yep.
Uh, and I have friends in Nashville who could put a group together for me, and I have friends in New York who could put a group together for me, put together a group for me. And so I'm not sure which of those two I'll go to, which either Nashville, or New York, I'll record it at. But the performance will be at the Gardner Museum.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Well, I'll have to stay in touch because I think that would be a really special thing to hear and see and to be at the Gardner Museum and just the whole experience. It sounds amazing.
yeah. I've been very fortunate that people would say, "Well, you need a plan for your life, a direction." And I've never worked that way. It's just one thing leads to another, like this Earl Jam thing. These recordings just fell into my lap.
Hmm.
I gave a banjo lesson to this guy recently, and turns out he's a classical guy. He was good friends with Leonard Bernstein, and he's the one that uh, asked me to write this piece. And so it's
Hmm.
just a lot of happenstance. So I've had a very blessed life. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and you've given a lot to the world, and we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
And folks really have to come out to the Katharine Hepburn Theater and see you December 2nd, and hopefully they can come out and buy some merch and shake your hand and
And
get a
we have,
selfie, whatever the kids like to do with the Facebook.
I'll be there. Yeah, we have new merch. We'll have T-shirts with a Santa drawing that I did playing a banjo and a tote bag. So
Can
perfect.
never have too many tote bags, right?
Yeah, exactly. And banjo socks, the perfect stocking stuffer.
Amen. I love it. Tony, this was such a pleasure for me. I can't even tell you.
Well, the same for me, Jim. And we have similar interests. So it's
Good,
great to
good. Well,
talk
I
with
will
you.
see you in early December, my friend.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim.
All right, take care, travel safe.
Thank you as well. Bye
Yep,
bye.
bye.